Did you know you do not have to let OSHA onto your property? In fact, sometimes the best thing you can do is stop them at the front door and turn them around. In this episode, I'm going to talk about 4 clear points every company should know. It explains your rights as an employer, and we talk about when you should refuse entry, how to do it the right way, and when you shouldn't do it. Let's jump in. Well, hey, friend, David Sawyer here. I'm a safety coach. I help busy managers go from overwhelmed to OSHA ready. And in this episode, we're going to unpack when you should refuse OSHA. Now, I want to be really clear. Just because you refuse OSHA doesn't mean you shouldn't do it politely. We'll explain how to do it the right way and when you shouldn't do it. But before I jump into the content of this episode, I want to remind you, go to my website, helpwithosha.com. You can access a free OSHA audit checklist, and it will explain how to prepare your team for an unexpected audit. It actually includes a video where I unpack the checklist so that you know exactly what you need to do to prepare your team. And there's an online course that you can purchase and even a coaching package if you want more hands-on for how to handle an OSHA audit. I talk about how to respond after an audit's happened, but we also talk about how to prepare your company so your management is ready should that door get a knock on it sometime soon. Now, that's at helpwithosha.com. You can go there and access the free checklist. But right now, let's talk about when you should refuse an OSHA audit. So the first thing I'm going to say is you need to understand your rights. So you have the right to clarify the scope of the inspection. And honestly, that's usually where things go off the rails, because if you've never been through an OSHA audit, you have a picture in your mind that they're going to go through the company wall to wall, pick up every stone, look under it for squiggly things. And the truth is, they don't want to do that. They don't really have that much time. They don't have that much manpower to do it. And so they're not looking to do a full wall-to-wall inspection. It's labor intensive, and it's not what they want to do. So the goal of OSHA is really to pinpoint where the compliance failures are. And so the scope is going to help you understand exactly what they're looking for. Now, when they come in the door, you have a right to know who is doing the inspection. So asking for credentials is a big part of it. We want to make sure that we know who the OSHA officers are. We want to know what office they came from, and we want to know why they're there. What triggered the audit? Now, most inspections are triggered by a disgruntled employee that files a complaint with OSHA. Sometimes the employee is still with you, sometimes he or she is not with you, but usually what happens is that complaint triggers the OSHA inspection. Now, OSHA inspections can also be triggered by accidents. So if you have a hospitalization or an amputation or God forbid, a fatality, OSHA will show up and do an inspection if it appears to be an unsafe working environment because of the accident. Now, if they don't show up in person, they might call you or email you or even send you a letter where they want more information. But for the inspection purpose, they're going to show up and it's going to be unannounced. They're going to come in and they're going to want to know about the accident that happened. So an employee complaint, an accident that happened, or a referral, meaning maybe a contractor referred you. Maybe you had an issue at another facility and then you were referred to OSHA. Maybe you have a temporary agency that's working with you and the temporary agency was being inspected by OSHA and then it kind of ricocheted and now your company's being inspected by OSHA. So referrals are another common way, but just know the top 2 reasons are usually a complaint or an accident. Now, for both of those, OSHA is going to want to see the area where the accident happened or the area where the complaint happened. So as an example, if you have a situation where the complaint was dealing with chemicals, they're going to want to know about your hazard communication program. They're going to want to know about the chemicals you work with. They're going to want to see a chemical inventory. Now, you can provide a lot of information without actually taking the inspector into the facility. So in my OSHA audit course, I explain how to control the audit so that you are in control of what's happening and it's not happening to you. So you're being proactive instead of reactive during the audit. But the two main things you want to make sure you understand really clear: who's performing the audit, you have the credentials, and you know the scope of the audit. So a nice way to say this is to simply explain, hey, thanks for stopping by. Before we proceed with the audit, can you tell me your purpose for the inspection, and can you show me your credentials? Most of the time, they're going to show you their credentials before you even ask. It's almost like a police officer. They're going to wave their badge at you and show you, hey, I'm legit. But if that happens to the receptionist and you're the safety manager, when you go out, you want to get a copy of that. You even want to get a copy of their business card so that you can make copies for the file and you understand. The beginning of the audit sets the tone for the audit. So be professional, and you're never going to physically block them at the door, right? You're never going to get physical at all. You're not going to no, you can't come in. You're not entering. You're not doing that. You're being clear with your voice, and you know your rights. Hey, I need to know who you are. I need to know why you're here. The second thing is, and this is kind of why we did the video, is you want to know when to refuse. When do I refuse? Now, the only reason OSHA can come in is if they have a warrant or if they have your consent. Those are the two reasons. They have a warrant to do an inspection, or they have your consent to do your inspection. Now, I've heard OSHA inspectors say, listen, if you tell me to leave, I'm just going to go get a warrant and come right back. And that's true, but it's going to take a little while for that to happen. Now, the other true part is you can think that they are employees just like you. They need to get their job done just like you need to get your job done. So if you refuse the audit, it doesn't mean the audit is going away. It's just going to be postponed a little bit. And then they're going to come back with a warrant and they're going to do the audit. And because they're human beings, they're probably going to be in a bad mood about it. And you don't want them in a bad mood. You want them in a good mood. But you want to be clear on your reasons for refusal. So the first thing is, if you do not have a clear scope of the audit. So if they are not clear on why they're there, if you do not understand why they're there, if they're kind of vague on the purpose and you don't get it, then that you're going to refuse. You're going to say, I'm sorry, I can't move forward until I understand what we're actually looking for here. And sometimes that's where the wires get crossed, because they are doing an inspection and maybe they have the wrong facility. That happens. Sometimes they come and they're like, hey, we're here to do an inspection on this chemical. And you go, we don't even have that chemical here. You must be thinking about our other facility. And that can happen. So if you're not clear on the scope, that's a big thing. The other one is, and this happens a lot, if you refuse an audit, lots of times it's because your safety director isn't there, or the plant manager isn't there, or the owner of the company is out of town. Lots of times not having adequate leadership is going to say, whoa, wait a minute, I don't want to do the audit right now. We don't have the person that's in charge of this. And if you don't have your safety director there and nobody knows where any of the documents are, it's probably a bad idea to have an audit. So that's a part of it. The other one is if it's a bad time. Now, typically people will go, well, it's always a bad time to have an OSHA audit. That's not true. There are good times to have OSHA audits. It's just kind of Murphy's Law that it's usually going to happen at the worst possible time. So let me give you a few examples of a bad time. So a bad time is if you are shut down. If the company is shut down and you're not running operations that day, that's a bad time to have an audit. Because if they're coming because, let's say, they're worried about noise, the level of noise in the area, and none of the machines are running, probably not going to be a good time to do the audit. I had a situation where we were running a piece of equipment on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they showed up on a Monday. And we said, we're not running that equipment today. And they actually rescheduled to come back the next day because we couldn't start up and run the equipment. We didn't have the materials needed to run the equipment. So it was a pretty simple thing where we just rescheduled the audit so they could come the following day. Now, they weren't really happy about it, but that was a perfect example of why you want to reschedule an audit for a day when the machinery is running that they're there to see. So kind of hit the high points on those three. If you don't know a clear scope, you want to refuse. If you don't have the right leadership, you want to refuse. And if it's bad timing, you want to refuse. Another example of bad timing, just while I'm thinking of it, one time we were doing an audit for SQF, which is a food safety audit at the company I used to work for. And we paid thousands and thousands of dollars to have this audit performed. Now, OSHA never showed up during the audit, but if they had, that would have been a situation where we would have said, hey, is there any way we can reschedule this? We cannot do this right now because we've paid tens of thousands of dollars to have this other audit, and we can't do both at the same time. It just won't work because we're having to focus on the one that we're paying for, not this one. So that's another example of bad timing. Now, number 3, this is my third point. How do you refuse the audit? Well, you want to be calm. You want to be calm. You don't want to be confrontational. So you simply say, look, we want to cooperate, but I need to contact our safety director. He's not on site today. Or, is there any way we can do this tomorrow? Our manager is not here today. They're out of town with a marketing program. So pause, gather your team, make sure that you are clear in your communication, you're clear in what's holding up the audit, and know that you're going to get some pushback from the inspector because the inspector wants to move forward. They drove a couple hours to be there probably, and they want to move this thing along. They don't want to drive back to their office and not get the job done that they came out to do. So they're going to be pushing, we want to get this done. We want to get this done. Hey, is there any way we can start now? We'll make this, we'll do it like this. We'll do it like that. There might be some compromises. Not that they're compromising on the audit itself, but that they're flexible with the timing. They might have gotten there at 8:30 and you go, you know what? Our plant manager is going to be here at 11. And they might be willing to wait until 11. So good communication. We clarify that we're willing to cooperate, but we need to have these parameters in place. Now, I want to wrap up by talking about this one because this is just as important as knowing your rights, is knowing when not to refuse. So you do not want to refuse if there's imminent danger. You don't want to refuse if OSHA presents a warrant for the audit, and if they are responding to a hospitalization or a fatality. You do not want to refuse for any of those. The goal is for you as a manager to have control over the situation. That helps with your sanity. It also helps making sure that the company continues to run safely and efficiently. You don't want to have confrontation. We're not trying to get into some kind of macho fest where you're like, this is my company and I'm in control of it and you're not, and get out of here and blah. We're not doing that. We are simply trying to make sure that they can do their job and we can do our job and we can make this work to where everyone benefits. We don't want employees getting hurt. We want to show them that they're not getting hurt. And it kind of goes back. I say this to my kids. I've got 4 kids, and sometimes, I remember just the other day, my 5th grader was telling me how she didn't like doing tests. And my wife is always, and I say this in the most complimentary way. She was kind of a nerd in school. She was incredibly smart, always did good on tests. And she told me, I always look forward to tests because I got to show all that I knew. And if I could kind of reframe that for an OSHA inspection, If you go, look, I'm not worried about the inspection. I know we got our ducks in a row. I know that we're going to do just fine, but I also know that we need to understand our rights. We want to clarify the scope. We want to know who's doing it. We want to make sure the timing works out. We got our leadership in place so that they can manage the process correctly. Those are the pieces that we want in place. So with that in mind, until we talk again, do everything you can to keep the people you work with safe, because no one should get hurt at work.